Welcome back to Power and Politics, where we are tracking the fallout from today's stunning announcement by the government that Canada is going to spend a minimum of $9 billion on the purchase of 65 new fighter jets. They're called the F-35. Now, just before the break, I heard from the Minister of Defense, Peter MacKay. He told us that there was an open competition to buy these aircraft, that Canada is getting the best plane for the best money. But is that really true? Is this the right plane for Canada's military? Was the procurement process open enough to get the best deal? Or, as some critics say, are we just following the lead of the U.S. and buying this plane? No one knows more about this whole program than Allan Williams. Now, he is the former Assistant Deputy Minister for the Department of Defense. He was actually in charge of getting Canadians involved in this project, and he's even written a book called Reinventing Canadian Defense Procurement. This is the book on how military actually gets equipment just like these jets. Allan Williams joins me now in studio. Good to see you.
Nice to be here.
Allan Williams, in some ways, you're the guy to talk about when you're talking about procurement of this particular aircraft, because this was your baby when you were the Assistant Deputy Minister of Defense. You signed the involvement in this contract when you heard that the government was announcing, Peter MacKay was announcing $9 billion and service contracts that could take this up to $20 billion without a competition. What was your reaction?
I was both disappointed, tremendously disappointed, angry, but not surprised. Because for some reason, over the last 5 years, this government's done a lot of sole sourcing, de facto sole sourcing. If you look at the Chinooks, if you look at the C-17s, if you look at the Hercules C-130s, de facto all of these were sole sourced. So now you add another $9 billion onto that. And it bothers me because it's not a smart way of doing business. If you have to get something immediately to get to Afghanistan tomorrow, that's something else. That's not what we're talking about here. And when you sole source, everybody loses. Taxpayers lose. I mean, often it's you can spend up to 20% more than needed. It's like you going into the car dealership and saying, I'm going to buy a car, now let's haggle on price. Well, you've lost all your leverage. So if you talk about the billions already spent plus this 9, you're talking about probably over $20 billion. That could be $4 billion of taxpayers' money, your money and my money, that is squandered. If it's not 4, maybe 2. If it's not 2, it's 1.
Now, the Minister of Defense, Peter MacKay, has told us and told Canada, hey, there's already been a competition. The Liberals have it wrong. The opposition have it wrong. We were involved in a joint strike fighter program with the U.S., with the Netherlands, with Italy, with some key allies. There was a competition between Boeing and Lockheed-Martin to see who would have the best plane. Lockheed-Martin won. The F-35 is it. We've had the competition. We've invested almost $500 million into this process. This is the plane.
Well, unfortunately, he doesn't have it right. Yes, there was a competition back in the early 2000s conducted by the U.S. to pick the company that would build a joint strike fighter. But that has nothing to do with the situation today and over the next decade in terms of determining which aircraft out in the marketplace best serves the needs of our military. They're two totally separate issues, and to confuse the two is surprising to me. So
the notion that, now again, the Minister has reminded Canadians, we invested hundreds of millions of dollars to be part of the development of the F-35. That has led to us getting, and Canadian companies being awarded a huge number of contracts, almost up to $1 billion. So we've benefited from an industry level on this. So we've had competition, we're benefiting, and we've got joint interoperability with the U.S. Air Force on this. What's the problem with that argument?
I mean, that's all great. But that is nothing to do with whether or not, as we move forward, that aircraft best suits our needs. Look, it's a phenomenal aircraft. And I would find it hard to believe there's a better one out there. But who am I to say? I'm not a soothsayer. And who are you to say? And who is the Chief of Defense Staff to say? None of us know. And as I was saying, not only when you sole source do you squander money, but you're squandering the military's money. And if we spent $1 or $2 or $4 billion extra, too much, that money would now be in their budget to be reallocated. So they've lost out. And also, the most important thing in procurement is to get what's best for our military. How do you know this is best? You don't.
This is a great plane, but it may not be a great plane for Canada.
That is correct. Now, it's a great plane and might not be the best for us, or there may be others that can equally satisfy our needs at a lower life cycle cost. You don't know that either. So for all those resource sourcing, it doesn't make much sense. Industry typically also will not benefit as much. All of our success to date is because we've joined the program, and that's why we joined it, not to buy the aircraft. But if you compete, all the bidders are forced to come in with rigorous industrial regional benefit plans. And who knows what extra we can get from that. And just one final point. The fourth big loser in this is the government. Because instead of everybody giving them pats on the back and kudos, saying, isn't this great, we're now moving forward, getting a 21st century jet, I think that's outstanding. We're all focusing on the how, not the what. And that's really sad, and that's very unfortunate.
What about, let's talk, you understand procurement. Now, everyone says that the U.S. is heavily invested in this. They're buying over 2,400 of these things. This will be the biggest procurement cost in history, we think. An independent Pentagon analysis, though, sent to Congress last month said that the cost analysis of the price per plane that was originally supposed to be $50 million a plane has now gone up to $112 million a plane. That's an 81% increase, okay, or over 62 million.
Right.
There's been a lot of questions about the cost overruns. Now, given the fact that there's problems within the cost overruns in the program, is it smart for Canada to right away jump in and order over 60 planes?
Well, let me clarify things. The fact that there's cost overruns shouldn't be all that surprising given the complexity of the program. I mean, in my experience, when you're talking about multi-billion-dollar programs, you have to expect some. Point number two is, it doesn't necessarily follow that all of the cost overruns are going to be transferred to the purchaser. Much of these are in the developmental phase, and in the memorandum of understanding, I'm sure that there is much more specific costs identified for the aircraft in the event that countries buy them. So I think if you're Gates, you're concerned because you want to run a program very well, and this is still money that's being spent. If you're a buyer, though, I think you perhaps are a little bit calmer, because the specific cost per aircraft may not be escalating into the numbers you talked about.
There's still no detailed plan that we see in terms of maintenance. We've heard $9 billion to purchase, but up to $20 billion when it comes to maintenance. Again, you're a procurement guy. You understand this contract. Should we have a real number in terms of what our maintenance costs will be already?
Of course. Now, it may not be, as we say, an A estimate, very, very refined, but I am sure that within the system, there are estimates as to what the long-term support costs are going to be for the aircraft. You have to have it. And especially in a program like this, which prides itself on keeping the long-term support costs down because it is a joint aircraft with many being built for many purposes, you can really constrain the life cycle costs. So I am sure that if anything, they're going to be low. And I'm sure they have a pretty good idea what they are.
So last thing, so here we are now, the government's saying we're going to save money by doing it early, we're already invested, we're going to be integrated with the United States, and this will be this is what they call a fifth generation aircraft. This is from a defense first policy, which Canada should have the latest and the greatest technology. That's why they've done this. That's why they've awarded the contract. Again, you've been following this story for almost a decade, deeply involved in it. Have they gone wrong at the end, or is this the right way to move?
I think they've gone wrong. All along when we signed the MOUs, we made it clear
Memorandum of
Understandings for the second phase and even the third phase. I didn't sign the third phase, but if you read the commentary that came out at the time, everybody made the comment that this does not commit us. Because we knew at the start that wasn't the purpose of entering this program. And certainly I always stated, and others have stated, that when the time comes to buy, we're smart enough to search the marketplace and pick the best one. And if this is the best one, it'll win. I mean, there's nothing magical about this. If it turns out to be, I don't know why people are afraid. If this is the best one.
So why avoid an open bidding process?
Well, that's what I don't understand. And certainly my strong commitment is to procurement. I think it's open, fair, and for everybody. The only people that don't like it are, frankly, lobbyists. Lobbyists don't like it because, of course, the last thing they want is open, fair transparency. They like the company that's paying them to be successful in the bid. I'm sure Lockheed-Martin lobbyists are celebrating right now.
Allan Williams, you followed this as the Assistant Deputy Minister of National Defence. Not a happy day for you, it seems like.
Very disappointing. I expect more.
Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.